As y'all see, I have my Trafalgar Law hat on because he's a swordsman, kinda. I think it's finally time we address what it means to be a swordsman because this has been brought up a little bit in this series. I know I made a TikTok about it where I got into it with people. Well, I don't ever like yell at people, but we got in a little bit of a debate about what it means to be a swordsman, who's a swordsman. I was like, Rayleigh's a swordsman, and they're like, no. It's somewhere there. You guys should definitely follow me on TikTok. I post content on there about One Piece and other anime almost every day. So go ahead, do it. It's on the screen and it's in the description below. But then I got to thinking about the chapter that happened with Zoro and King and how King was fighting with Zoro. And King, his sword had grates that took Zoro's swords away, and King started punching. And then Zoro was a little bit confused. He's like, well, what are you doing? And then King's like, well, is there a method, or do you need to go to school in order to know how to fight? And Zoro's like, well, no, you didn't necessarily call you a swordsman. And in this fight, if need be, I'll rip out your throat so I can win. And then we later see when Zoro's fighting King even more, that when he's about to get knocked off Onigashima, Zoro uses Clear Lance, comes back. Zoro's like, King, if you're going to try to kill me, at least do it by the blade. So it's a little bit confusing on what I would say what is a swordsman, because people who claim to be swordsmen are saying some wild stuff, and people who don't even claim to be swordsmen use swords. And so another thing that caught my eye was Mihawk versus Shanks. We know that they're rivals, and Mihawk, he lost interest in Shanks once he lost his arm. And so I don't understand why. Is it because Mihawk, who's what we would say the pinnacle of swordsmen, since he's the world's strongest, does he know something that we don't? Is it because Shanks lost his arm that he thinks he's weaker, that he doesn't think he's a proper swordsman anymore? Because in terms of strength, Shanks is probably, well, in the current timeline with everybody, not including people who are dead, Shanks is probably a top 5, top 7 strongest in the series. Definitely top 10. I'd put him in the top 5. We saw what he did to Akainu. We saw what he did against Whitebeard. Shanks stopped Akainu's attack. He clashed with Whitebeard, split the heavens. So Shanks is definitely strong. So why did Mihawk stop really rocking with my man? Because Shanks could still compete. And so when you look up the definition of a swordsman, it basically says, well, I'll put it on the screen with you guys, or for you guys. It says someone who uses a sword. And then in parentheses, it says someone typically with skill. And so if you just take the first part of the definition without the parentheses, you look at Luffy. There's been times where he used swords, specifically Wano. I know he used it, and he used physical strength to overpower and break through the iron swords. At Marineford, Luffy uses as well in order to block different attacks because he was having his hands full with other Marines. And then he used it against Arlong, but that is when Luffy, he says, well, I'm not a master swordsman. I can't do this. So that's not really what a swordsman is. Right, technically it is, but it's not. He's using a sword, so that makes him a swordsman. But a swordsman means much, much more than that. And before I get into my definition of what I consider a swordsman to be, make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you guys never miss out on any videos. I post content multiple times during the week. We do a lot of stuff here. We're going to be doing even more, so make sure you guys subscribe. But what I would give a personal definition of what I'd say a swordsman is, it's someone who uses a sword and that's their primary method of fighting. If you take away that sword, that I don't want to say they're useless, but they're pretty much useless. For example, 3 people who have swords or use swords and they have devil fruits include Whitebeard, Fujitora, and Law, where I'd say if you took away their devil fruit, could they still compete? Would they still be on as strong as they are? And I'd say yeah. I mean, realistically, when you give devil fruits to anybody, it boosts their strength unless it's like a really, really trash one, right? And how they work on their physical strength and other qualities of swordsmanship, which I'll get into later, is how they're strong. Because when you look at Whitebeard, he has one of the 12 supreme grades. I'm not going to pronounce it. I I know what it is, but like I'm not about to embarrass myself. But if we've seen Whitebeard on Marineford, how he was using his little spear-like sword, and we saw him clash against Roger and a couple other things. And so if you take away the Gura Gura no Mi, because he incorporates that into his sword, will Whitebeard still be able to compete? Will he still be strong? Yes. Same with Fujitora. We see how he incorporates gravity in his fighting, that he brings down meteors, but if you take his fruit away, he's strong. And same with Law. Law is a little bit difficult because he incorporates, it's about 50-50 with his swordsmanship. That like he'll pick up rocks, throw rocks at you, then when he's close to you, he'll teleport, try to cut off your head. But Law has trained with the sword, and I think all three of them are swordsmen because they rely on their sword more than I'd say their devil fruit in fights. And then when you look at other anime, something that really pisses me off is whenever they bring up Sasuke. I've seen some people say Sasuke is more technically sound and a better swordsman than Zoro, specifically because of what he did in the Momoshiki fight where he balanced or spun a sword off his foot. And to me, that's like if a Harlem Globetrotter went against an actual NBA player. Like, a Harlem Globetrotter has skill, they do different tricks, they are more skilled than the average person. But if they go against an actual NBA player, I'm pretty sure the actual NBA player is going to beat them 100 out of 100 times. And that's the same with Sasuke, because in anime, the three best swordsmen, hands down, goes to Kenshi from Rurouni Kenshin, Gintoki from Gintama, and the number 3 one has an asterisk. You could say, well, I give the spot to Zoro, and a lot of people do, but technically, since Mihawk is the world's strongest in One Piece and Zoro's not the best in his verse, you would probably put Mihawk there. And I've seen some people say somebody from Samurai Shampoo, but I haven't seen it. But definitely, if Zoro / Mihawk, if you don't want to put number 3, they'll be 4. But they're up there. And a lot of other swordsmen in other anime, the reason why we don't have them as the best of the best is because they're boosted by a lot of hacks. I know, for example, Levi, he's boosted because he uses the 3D maneuver gear to get around. Urza, she uses her magic, and she has different forms that she takes when she uses her swords. Bleach, Ichigo, he has his hollow, and he uses his Get Your Attention. And we can keep going, but those are why those characters aren't considered elite. It's because they're more reliant on their hacks than actual technique with the blade. Not to say they're not technically sound, but there are others who are better than them. So now we're going to talk about what are the qualities of a swordsman, what makes up a swordsman, and this is specifically talking about One Piece because, well, that's primarily what the video is about. But I'd say you need to have the breadth of all things because Zoro's master, he was talking about how swordsmen, or at least the great ones, they can cut anything and nothing at the same time, and that takes immense skill to do. You also need to have physical strength, and Zoro gets hated on a lot for this whenever he gets put into power scaling things and like different matches when they're like equal stats. Oh, Zoro can't compete because he's all about physical strength, which, I mean, that boosts his swordsmanship. That's how his swordsmanship is about. But Zoro has technique. He just overpowers his opponent. So whenever there's like this Zoro vs. Killer Me matchup, they're like, oh, well, Zoro didn't have the physical strength. Well, he does. But guess what? He still smashed Killer Bee anyway. So physical strength is important. It is important to train the body and the mind at the same time. And a number of swords, it's all up to personal preference. I don't really think it matters. As long as you train properly with it. For example, like Hachi, he would just swing his swords around. He would just, and like he didn't really understand what it means by the weight of different swords, and that the number doesn't necessarily matter if someone is more skilled than you. Like if somebody had 1 sword or somebody has 3, whoever's more skilled will come out on top. Armament hockey is important because we don't know how black blades are formed, but that's what we speculated with. The only 2 people to form permanent black blades, Ryuma and Mihawk, and they take pride in that, and in the series it's mentioned that that's important because black blades, I don't know how true this is, but I'm pretty sure I read that even if like an elephant were to step on it, the blade wouldn't bend or something along those lines, because honor is very important, and we see that not just with the samurai, but that's who we link that with. But other swordsmen, they take honor. For example, Zoro saying it's a shame on a swordsman's back to have a scar, and that Mihawk talks about, hey, it's shameful for a swordsman to have a nick on his blade, which is why he made Zoro Master Armor Haki. So that's very important, and I think to be called a master swordsman, along with Mihawk and Ryuma, a Daikaigo, that you need to have a black blade. Personal attachment is important as well. We see how well Mihawk interacts with his Yoru. We saw how important Shusui is to the people of Wano and what it means to them. And then when you look at Zoro, when he got Urabashi and the Katetsu, the Water Ichimonji, he talks to his blade, he talks to Enma, talks to Shusui. And then when Urabashi got turned into rust, Zoro was sad and he made a prayer for his sword. So I think personal attachment is very important. It's like you're speaking to your sword, and it's like they're a partner and extension of yourself. They need to be able to do different techniques and attacks. I don't want to say I don't want to limit them, but I think slash attacks are important to great swordsmen. Brook has done it, Mihawk, Zoro has done it, Odin as well. I also think that cutting fire is good. I think that's a good technique to have. And then honestly, to sum it all up, to be able to cut what they want, what they do, and what they don't want, I think that's important as well. And then lineage, this is a little asterisk. I think that could play a factor. We see the Shimoshuki clan, Ryuma, Ushimaru, and then we believe Zoro's a part of that. So that might be why he's such passionate about swords, because it's in his blood. But to conclude, I think a proper swordsman or a great swordsman is someone who uses a sword that as their primary weapon, and that if you take it away, they become much more weak, and that is what they rely on in a fight. And to become a great swordsman, you have to master different techniques and to get strong. But let me know what you guys think are the qualities of a swordsman and who you think the best swordsman is in anime. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, hit the notification bell so you guys never miss out on a new video. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and TikTok is on the screen in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching. And don't forget to unleash your potential.